Hello Year 8s, and today what you're going to be looking at is extinction and also genetic variation. So in the first topic that you are covering today, we are looking at extinction and answering questions like, why is it that we don't see dinosaurs anymore? They roamed the earth for over 100 million years, but then they became extinct about 65 million years ago. So you'll need to have your Science Progress 2 textbook open to page 38 and 39. We are going to be able to describe changes that can lead to extinction and also describe methods to prevent extinction of species for both animals and plants, such as zoos, national parks and seed banks, as well as other ways. So, extinction. An organism is extinct when all the members of the species have died out. It usually occurs when there is a change in the environment. If the species is not as well adapted to survive the change as other species, it will not be able to compete successfully. So, it will die out. Many species have become extinct, not just dinosaurs. The dodo was a large flightless bird that lived on the island of Mauritius. It became extinct within 100 years of Dutch sailors landing on the island. No one knows exactly what caused their extinction. Now, one suggestion was that the sailors ate the birds. And this is unlikely, as reports from the time suggest that they did not taste very nice. It is more than likely that the sailors brought other animals to the island that attacked the birds or ate their eggs. As the birds could not fly away, they were easy prey for dogs. And dodos laid their eggs in nests on the ground, so these could be eaten by cats and rats. So here is a picture of a dodo. And the question I would like you to think about right now is, what other species do you know that are extinct right now or have become extinct? Now, changes that can lead to extinction include climate change, for example, if there is an ice age, or global warming. It's really important to remember that we don't confuse the word climate with weather. Your weather is what you have every day, and it changes from day to day. Your climate is essentially what you have for a longer period of time, maybe a few years. A catastrophic event, for example, may be an asteroid hitting the Earth, maybe a new predator, a new competitor, a disease, or maybe it's the actions of humans. For example, hunting, deforestation, which destroys the homes, the habitats of certain animals, or even the plants that they live on, and also maybe the prey that the animals live on as well. Or perhaps it's the use of chemicals, or even radiation if we think about events like Chernobyl. So here is a picture of the black rhino and the bluefin tuna. And these are the Galapagos penguins, and they're all endangered species. So perhaps what we need to think about is what can be done to prevent these animals becoming extinct. Now, here is one method that could help prevent extinction. They're called gene banks. Now, gene banks are stores of tissue or cell samples from endangered species. They preserve the hereditary material of organisms before they become extinct. The samples are stored at very low temperatures, much colder than a normal freezer. Now this preserves the material so that it could be defrosted in the future and used to produce more organisms. Now, plant materials are fairly easy to store for use in the future. So the reason why is because seeds or cuttings survive very well over many years, and they can be thawed out to produce plants every few years, and then seeds from them are collected and frozen to maintain a healthy store of material. Now, there is a store at the Millennium Seed Bank in Sussex in the United Kingdom, and maybe what you could think about is the question, how are plants chosen for the seed bank? So if you've thought about it, you could think, well, perhaps these plants could be useful for medicines in the future. Perhaps these plants and these seeds are endangered. Perhaps another reason could be that they yield disease-resistant crops or disease-resistant fruit. Maybe they're actually good varieties of certain fruits that we enjoy. And the fifth reason that you could have is perhaps these are plants that certain insects or certain animals rely upon. For example, bamboo for pandas. So, animal tissues are more difficult to use. The sex cells of sperm and eggs, perhaps blood and other tissues can be frozen, but using them in the future to reproduce the organisms requires a great deal more research. However, the most important thing is that the DNA of endangered species is being preserved. So, I'm going to use a couple of terms to stretch and challenge you. Now, these terms and these pages have been taken from the BBC website, Bite Size. To maintain biodiversity. Biodiversity is the diversity that you have within a habitat, within an ecosystem. And biodiversity needs to be maintained because as soon as one organism is in danger, that could have a significant effect on what relies on that organism to be in that habitat. I'm going to take you through this. This is more so to stretch and challenge you with even more keywords and key phrases. But the great thing about this website, and when I take you through it, and I will leave you the links for it in your guidance documents, the great thing about it is that it sums up very nicely what the different methods that are being used to prevent extinction are. And it goes a little bit beyond what is in the textbook that you have. So an endangered species is at risk of extinction. And the term endangered species is an animal that is close to extinction because of their low numbers. Okay? And the term extinction is when a type of plant or animal is wiped out forever. So here is another example of an animal that is close to extinction. This is a snow leopard. Gorilla are endangered as well, and they may become extinct at some stage. So they can be endangered for several reasons. Perhaps the number of available habitats falls below a critical level. Maybe at that stage it's very, very difficult for male animals to find female animals to breed and maintain the population number. And the population of the species falls below a critical level. So if we don't have any habitats, the animals and plants can't find their resources, their natural resources. Maybe if it's an animal, if it's a predator, it can't find its prey because it's not in the habitat is not available. Or maybe it could be down to safety, it could be down to protection. Maybe the habitat provides protection. For example, a forest area or a hedgerow. A hedgerow are hedges that you sometimes find in areas such as Europe. And those hedges could provide protection for certain animals. One example is a hedgehog. Or you could think of a field which doesn't have so many plants for certain animals like mice to feed on, or large tall grasses for the animals to find protection from their own predators. So biodiversity. Biodiversity means having as wide a range of different species in an ecosystem as possible. We're talking about the range of animals and plants in a given area. Now, it's important to conserve the variety of living organisms on Earth. Not only do we have moral and cultural reasons for conserving endangered species, but conservation maintains the future, possibly, that plant species might be identified for medicines. It keeps damage to food chains and food webs to a minimum, and it protects our future food supply. So moral reasons as to why it is that we need to be looking after the animals and plants that are around us include the fact that we have a duty of care over the world as we know it. We enjoy the world, but we need to look after it as well. We also need to make sure that future generations can enjoy it too. And cultural reasons. Let's say, for example, there was a certain species of camel or kestrel or bird of prey that was a danger, that was in danger of dying out and becoming extinct in the Middle East. Perhaps there may be a cultural reasons why we need to conserve those endangered species. Now, seed banks, we've spoken about gene banks. Seed banks are specific to plants. If a plant species is endangered and therefore close to extinction, it's important to take measures to conserve the species. And seed banks are a conservation measure for plants. They're buildings in which seeds are stored so that new plants may be grown in the future, even if naturally the plants are extinct. Now, this will help to maintain biodiversity. And seed banks are an example of gene banks. The gene banks are increasingly being used to preserve genetic material for use in the future. So cryobanks are another type of gene banks. Cryobanks use very cold temperatures to preserve embryos, sperm or eggs. So very low temperatures in liquid nitrogen, which is at minus 196 degrees centigrade. And what they can do is they can preserve these sperm, these eggs, these embryos, for them to be thawed out later for use in breeding programs. Thank you for watching the guidance video for extinction. The other topic that we're going to be doing in this lesson is phenotypes and genotypes, and that video should be coming up very shortly. Take care, stay safe, stay at home. Bye for now.